Hey dreamers. Okay, I really need to try and fix this because I don't know why I can't change this message that shows up when I start my lives. Hey Toffee, where are you? Hello. Do you want to say hello? Now, let's see if I can change this. Oh, I can only do it uh, outside of live. Okay, well, I'll do that. I'll try and fix that next time. Where are my comments? How can I type comments? Why is this so difficult? Here we go. Okay. Just putting up a message and then I will start. Oh, come on. Fine. I'm gonna leave the half message there because TikTok is trash. Hi Mia, how are you? Okay, all good to get started. So, welcome to Kiki's Big Dream Experiment and my second TikTok live in this series. I'm good, Mia. Thank you. I am doing this series of TikTok lives once a week, and I want to just chat about my theme of the week. So this week, my theme is seeking knowledge, and earlier in the week, I was catching up on my first TikTok live with the theme of letting go. And I just want to chat about what the theme means, what I've been up to during the week, and connect with people and chat about things. So, what is Kiki's Big Dream Experiment? It is a 90-day challenge I've given myself to just show up publicly every day doing something creative. So every day of the week I have some kind of publication, whether it's an article I'm posting on LinkedIn or Substack, a poem I'm posting on Instagram, a podcast episode I'm releasing on Spotify, or doing lives like this or on Twitch. And it's all in the name of just trying different creative ventures to connect with people and do experiments and try and build something cool. And what do I mean by experiments? Just little trials and tests to kind of connect you with a part of creativity that maybe you don't think about too much. And it's all in the name of trying to get to know yourself a bit better. So it really suits this theme of seeking knowledge this week. As you might be able to see, Toffee on my lap likes to join me when I'm on live because she likes when I'm talking, and I guess she thinks that I'm talking to her. So how do I pick my themes? Well, I picked my themes using a deck of tarot cards. And I decided I wanted to do this because I could pick the themes myself, but I find it more interesting to be given a theme and talk about it. And my challenge then was, how do I pick a theme? So I decided to go with tarot cards because I use tarot cards every day just for personal reflection. And I think they're a great tool for reflecting on yourself because the meaning you draw from them is like it's something that you think about when you read the description. Um, and so that's how they're a useful tool because they, like any card that you pull, when you read it, it'll make you think of something. And so when you start pulling them in combination together or you ask a particular question and get an answer, it gives you a direction to go in. And I like the surprises, I guess, that come from it. Because I can talk about any topic, but I want to build a story over the 90 days of Kiki's Big Dream Experiment. And the way I tell stories in lots of different ways. And so for this one, I just want to let the cards or the universe or some force, some randomness guide me to talk about all these issues that are really interconnected, that is difficult to select a single starting point. And so I'll find meaning in it myself and I'll use the theme of the card to find a specific theme to assign for my week. So this week, I draw the cards based on the major arcana. So I look at the takeaways from my previous week, think about what I want to accomplish this coming week, and then shuffle cards and draw until I get something from the major arcana. Then I reflect on what that Okay, my phone holder is not great, as you might be able to see, so I'm going to set up my phone elsewhere. And Toffee got very spooked by that, which I'm not surprised by. Okay, let's see if this is any better. It should be. Where was I? Themes. So the reason I was using the major arcana is because the 22 major arcana cards represent the journey of life. And there's so many journeys we go through. There's so many things that we start and finish. And within the journey of starting and finishing something, you go through these different stages. You know, at the start, you're entering it without any knowledge and you're going in there kind of naive and innocent. And the next, that's the Fool card. And the second card is the Magician. And that card is about sort of recognizing your power and then using your power. The third card is the High Priestess. And that is all about sort of knowing your power and choosing when to enact it and choosing when to sort of let your environment do its thing. So they all represent these different stages of life. And so for this week, Seeking Knowledge, the card I pulled was number 5, the Hierophant, which is a card that represents a teacher or a mentor and this desire for knowledge. The deck that I'm using is the Wild Unknown Tarot. This one. And in the description of the Hierophant, it talks about sort of getting to a point where you've learned as much as you can and you need some guidance from a mentor or a teacher. And I've been thinking about this theme of seeking knowledge all week, and it's a very broad topic. And I think it's because I have been very aware of seeking knowledge my whole life, being in school and enjoying subjects that I take and just trying to learn more and more and more. And so I've got a lot of personal experience with being disciplined in seeking knowledge, that I can see the positives and the negatives, and it's kind of hard to know where to start. Whereas last week, when I was talking about the theme of letting go, that is something that is quite new for me, really, letting go of things in the past. And so because it's quite new, I had a better idea of my story with it, and what are the benefits of letting go and what are the difficulties and challenges with letting go. So I've struggled a little bit with my content this week, trying to have a particular point of view without rambling too much. And I suppose I would love to hear what you guys think, if you have any thoughts about what I'm talking about. I'd love to interact with people. Kiki's Big Dream Experiment is partly me showing up publicly, but also I want to connect with people in order to do some of these experiments, validate some of the processes I put together and the tools I put together, and just connect with each other and see how we can help each other achieve our dreams. So, seeking knowledge, the theme of seeking knowledge. Yeah, a lot of this week was, I kind of had the idea of seeking knowledge on the topic, really, looking at what I can learn this week about my thoughts and feelings about seeking knowledge, when to do it, when not to do it. I suppose I'll just chat about things as they come to mind, but the first one is just, what is knowledge? And the way I see it is that knowledge is an awareness of information, whether it's that you know the information or that you know it's there and you could get it. Hi Cara, how are you? Thanks for joining. The question though is, what about knowledge that you don't know about? Whether it's knowledge that exists that you don't know is there, or knowledge that doesn't yet exist that we don't know is there. Good to hear that, Cara. What are you up to today? So yesterday I was writing on Substack about this idea of sort of that matrix of knowing and not knowing knowledge. And we know what we know. We know there are things out there that we don't know. We know... What was the other one? Oh yeah, there's stuff that we know that we don't know we even know. So what do I mean by that? If you think about, when you learned to walk, you had to learn that. You had to actively practice it and learn it, whereas now it is something that you do without thinking. You just decide you want to go to the kitchen, so you stand up and you walk there. And you don't even think about it. So that is something that you know, but you're not aware of all of the time. And that's where we get habits and routines. They fall into this category of us not being aware anymore of this knowledge. It's a pattern of behavior that we've been following and not realized that we're still doing it. And that's one aspect of sort of how we go through the world. The other one then is the knowledge we know we don't know. I'll get onto this one, which is, let's take the field of chemistry. If you're a chemist, then you probably know quite a lot. But if you're not a chemist, then you know that chemistry is a topic. You know maybe a little bit about it, and but you know that you have Google, you have libraries, you have teachers, you've got ChatGPT or other AI tools that you can go and you can ask questions to learn more about chemistry. And you can go to school, you can get a degree to learn even more as well, to apply that knowledge in the real world. But the other quadrant, well, actually, before I get on to the fourth one, the third one of knowing what you know is that's how you live your life. That's how you go about your day. There's not much to add there, but that's your consciousness. You know, it's the you right now that I'm talking to who's listening to this and interpreting what I'm saying and deciding on your opinions about me and the content that I'm talking about. And that awareness is really useful to help you identify the other kinds of knowledge. And so the fourth one is, this stuff we don't know, we don't know. It is the questions in the world that we don't have answers to yet. And we see it a lot in science in particular. For so much of our time as humans, we believe that the earth was flat. And at some point, someone thought about something, or I don't know how we got there, but someone asked the question like, if the earth is flat, then why is this happening? Probably. And through experimentation and, trying to find answers to that, we realize, okay, the earth is not flat. It is just massive and it looks flat to us. And that got us to think about like exploring the stars and the solar system and so on. So we know a lot of what's out there at the moment that we can see, but we are limited currently by the speed of light. Basically, that's our upper limit for understanding the universe. And anything that sort of defies the speed of light or operates outside of it, we don't yet know how it works. And that's because we can't observe it. If it operates outside of the speed of light, we don't really know the inner workings. We just know the effects it has. So if you think about a black hole, light can't escape that. And my question is it that light can't escape it, or is it that light is being consumed by it and converted into something else? Now, I'm just talking from the little I know about black holes, but it's just a thought experiment that, based on our current understanding of the world, we have to build a model for it. And there's a lot of things that we follow that we can't scientifically explain yet, but there's a lot of support behind it. If you think of the idea of astrology, and star signs and looking at the position of the planets when you were born and the effect that has on a person, they are guides of behavior, and I think they're really helpful because they give you sort of a path to look at, to inquire what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. And we need that. We need to challenge ourselves to understand who we are, why we are the way we are, and also what our purpose is as well. And science can't fully explain that yet. Science can't fully explain all of those things yet. We don't have concrete answers for a lot of the reasons that our brains work the way they do. And we're still trying to understand them. But in the meantime, we have to follow different patterns and strategies to get around the stuff we don't know. So you have the likes of astrology and religion and spirituality to kind of give us a sense of purpose and understanding about why we're all here. And all of that is, you know, a way that we seek knowledge about what we're doing. So yeah, it's a complicated topic. There's those four areas that I mentioned of knowing what you know, knowing what you don't know, not knowing what you know, and not knowing what you don't know. And my question really is like, which one of those is most interesting to talk about or explore? I spent a lot of time in the not knowing what I don't know area, trying to get to some level of peace with like seeking knowledge without maybe a goal to try and understand everything, because I know I won't. Um, but I don't know, there's a drive there to want to know everything. The difficulty is that because we don't know everything yet, you're going to see things that are contradicting each other, and that is difficult to reconcile a lot of the time. We want to know how things work so much. We end up disregarding like the evidence against it. And you see this a lot in medicine where anecdotal evidence of symptoms doesn't really hold much weight. And I think that is a big failing in our scientific system at the moment, because how did we get to a point of examining anything unless we started observing the patterns that people are going through? By looking at this anecdotal stuff and seeing, you know, what are the variables that might be contributing to it? What are the reasons that a particular population of people are going through the same thing? You know, we have to observe things for an amount of time before we can start to notice patterns in order to test them and scientifically prove them. And that's kind of what I'm doing with Kiki's Big Dream Experiment. Is I'm showing up every day. I'm creating something to, I don't know, bring some kind of art to the world. And then over time, I can start to see like, what are the patterns in my own creative behaviors? What are the patterns I keep repeating that end up being like mental blocks to something? Like when I started Kiki Dreams Big 4 months ago, I was dreading going in front of a camera. And I had to start small and think about like, why am I doing this? Why do I want to go on camera? And I realized there were a few things. Like I wanted to be able to articulate my thoughts and talk about things without stuttering and getting lost and feeling like nobody is listening. And a lot of that is an internal block for myself. And it's only through like small incremental actions every day that I could get to a point now where I can just go live on TikTok and talk for an hour about a topic, like seeking knowledge and sharing my theories and ideas with people, and feel comfortable enough to defend them as well. That's the bit that's been difficult, because so many people come across as knowing better, and it's very hard to challenge, not even challenge that, but what is your as knowing better? And it's very hard to challenge, not even challenge that, but what is your, I suppose, what's your motivation? You know, if you're going around the world or going around the place acting as if you know better than others, then you're not ever listening and learning. Hey Dean, how are you? So your question, what's your opinion on teaching LGBTQ in school from a young age? Honestly, I think we should be teaching that it exists, that it is something that you're going to come across in the world. I think too much of the focus and the debate is on like talking to children about sexuality, and I think that's a ludicrous argument, because when we're kids and growing up, we're taught you have a mother and a father, and that this is the way that the world works. But there's never, we don't learn at that age, like how we came to be scientifically. We don't learn about sex until we're teenagers. So why is there this argument that teaching kids about the LGBT community at a young age is bringing sex into the equation? It is. I think it's silly because the younger you are when you learn how the world works and like the people that are in it, like you learn about the countries of the world. You know that there's almost 200 countries in the world with different people and different cultures, and you might not know the detail behind those, but you know that they're there. And as you're growing up, it's then not a surprise when you meet someone from India or China or Japan, for example. You sort of have a base reference point at the very least. So here's the thing. You're not pushing it. You're explaining that these are things that exist in the world. So much of the trouble, like I grew up LGBT, and so much of the anxiety that I had over it was that there was nobody around me who was queer or talking about queer things. So I never felt like I fit in, that it was like a legitimate thing to feel. I spent so much of my time feeling like I was broken because I didn't have the same attraction that my classmates had to other people. And I'm talking about being in secondary school now, 15, 16, 17. Whereas knowing that it's like a legitimate thing to feel attraction to the same sex or to multiple sexes would just be validating in a way that's like, okay, I'm not the only one. There are other people out there. They're just not in my school because my school is so small. So we should be teaching that there are different structures, really, in society. Like, what about kids who only have one parent? They don't have a mother and a father. They only have one parent. So, like, what does their life look like? If they're constantly being told you need a mother and a father to be successful, or to be raised correctly, then you're giving them a message that, there's something inherent about them that's not correct. So that's why we should be teaching kids about LGBT stuff in school age appropriately. If we're telling them about marriage, then we should be able to tell them, if we're telling them about marriage between a man and a woman, we should be able to tell them that a man and a man can get married, or a woman and a woman can get married too. So yeah, I think I've answered some of your question there. What age do you think it's right to talk about it? Like when kids start asking questions, answer them. I think that's the easiest thing to do, really. Give them enough information, like give them a little bit of information, and if they take that as the answer, then you're good. And later on, when they start, critically thinking about the world, they can ask even more questions to probe deeper. Okay, I don't understand why you think I'm a twisted person, but okay, whatever. I don't agree that it's taking kids' innocence away to learn about the world. Connor, I'm curious why you want to join the live. I haven't had people join lives before, so I'm just curious. Talking about LGBT topics is not talking about sexual preference. It is just like, how is it different to talk about a man loving a woman or a woman loving a man? That's sexual preference, right? But you think that's okay to teach kids about in school? My whole theme for this discussion is seeking knowledge, and when kids ask questions, it's because they're seeking knowledge, they're curious. If a 4-year old comes to you and asks why two men are holding hands in the street, then I think it's a fair thing to say that they are likely gay and love each other because they're holding hands, the same way that a man and woman walking down the street would be holding hands. I don't quite get what you mean, Sir Roger, that we should change entire society to suit the wants of one or two people. Who are these one or two people? Are you talking about, you know, queer people being a minority group? So, look at it this way: there's 8 billion people on the planet. 1% of that is 80 million people. 80 million is 10 times the population, more than 10 times the population of Ireland. So, like, if you're not accommodating to that 1%, are you saying that 1% of the population doesn't deserve equal rights? You know, we have so many accommodations for different people, um, because I think it's only right. There's going to be some, everyone's going to have some variation from average, because average is a myth. Average exists in local measurements. You know, if you look at height, you can be average height, but you might not be average weight. And when you compound all of those different measurements together, there is no single person on earth, and there never will be, who is average everywhere. So everyone is somewhere far away from average in some kind of measure. The problem is that looking at gender, um, male and female, or sexuality, that there has historically been a lot of persecution because of people not adhering to social norms. And we know now that it's not a choice, it is the way that a person is born. And so by denying them the same freedoms because of the way they're born, that is discrimination. The 99% are not going to have less rights because you're giving rights to more people. If kids are curious about why they see two men holding hands, they should be told the facts that there are people who are queer in the world. Like, what would you say to them instead? Like, when kids are curious, and I think, you know, we should be looking to kids and their curiosity and their imagination a lot more, because I think it's something that most adults forget is a virtue. Um, because being curious is how you learn. And if you're not curious about something, then you're going to stick to the beliefs that you have that are holding you back in some way, whether consciously or subconsciously. And leading with curiosity allows you to get more knowledge about a topic and understand that it's maybe not infringing on your rights as much as you think it might be. You're welcome to leave my video if you want. Well, let's talk about innocence and playful and joyful. Innocence is being unaware of something, it's being naive, and it's a good quality in that you're not aware of all the negativity in the world as well. You're not hampered by the limitations that society puts on you. And so there is an innocence that we should try to hold on to as well. So yeah, kids are innocent because they only start to lose innocence when they learn more about the world and realize that, they can't just grow up to be a dragon if they wanted to. There's science in the way of that at the moment. And this innocence is what gives you sort of this vast imagination as well. And teaching kids about the world is always reducing their innocence in some way and trying to be selective about that because you think that teaching them about the LGBT community is not something they should know about is based on a discriminatory belief. As for playful and joyful, those are definitely things that more adults should lean into as well, because when you are enjoying something and you're playing with it, you express your passion and creativity, and passion and creativity are the things that's like our only true gift to do anything in the world. If you weren't making or doing something, then why are you around? Why are you doing? Why are we here? We've developed an intelligence that we want to understand where we are, how the world works. We're constantly seeking knowledge in that way. And if we forget to be playful about it, we get too stuck in the rigidity of science and society and capitalism and money. I would argue that the opposite ideology will destroy the world because it is this opposite ideology of control and being selective about who is allowed rights and who isn't that is causing all of the war that is going on at the moment. What's interesting to me is that the so when I think about the theme I have this week for seeking knowledge and leaning in on curiosity, it's one of the things that I use for connecting people, connecting with people, and debating topics to understand other perspectives. Because when you get too stuck in your thinking and trying to promote your ideologies in ways where you're not listening to other people, then you just have two opposing forces that are fighting with each other until one of them wins in some way because the other one gives up or runs away or whatever. And that's how we end up with wars and conflict. But being curious, like, I don't see that there's anything there isn't anything that I've been saying that's like pushing an ideology. I don't think I'm sharing what I feel is objective truth about the world. And like, feel free to use objective truths to argue against that, and I will look at them. But like saying that 4 years old is too young to teach kids about the LGBT community, like what's the evidence there? What is the parameter of like what you're teaching them? Uh, Certainly would be too young to teach them the intricacies of sexuality and sex and the complicated emotions that go with that and the social aspects because they're barely even dealing with the social aspects of having friends yet. So, of course, they're not going to be able to comprehend the complexities of relationships. But they can see that other people have relationships, that there's a difference between a marriage and a friendship. And it's that level of detail that you would go into to explain that the LGBT community. Because when it comes to friendship, it doesn't, LGBT community and topics don't affect making friends in that way. It's just a person is different in some way, but a person is different because of the color of their hair or their interests, or where they grew up. So when you talk to kids at their level, and the way you talk to them at their level is by listening to the questions they ask. Because if they're asking a question, it's because they're thinking in a certain way. So this is what I don't understand. If they ask a question about why two men are holding their hands, why is answering that question forcing them to think a particular way when you answer it with fact? Like, how would you answer it? This is what I'm trying to understand. As I say, I'm not forcing kids to do anything. I'm saying meet them at the level that they're asking questions. What I'm saying is, why is it that there's this argument of not teaching kids about LGBT topics when they're too young? My question is, well, how do you determine what's too young? And how do you determine like what parts of LGBT topics do you talk about? Because so much of the argument is that mentioning LGBTQ topics is speaking to kids about sexuality, and that is a loaded idea because talking about parents is talking about sexuality in the same way. So my point is that yeah, there's definitely levels to which you can share information about these topics, and the easiest way of knowing is when kids ask questions, answer them in terms that they can understand. Just don't lie to them. That does more harm than good, especially if the lie is not factual. Hi, Quaylon, how are you? You know, kids ask these questions because they're seeking knowledge about the world. They're learning so much in schools, they're learning from their environment, from their families, and of course, they are going to have questions on knowledge gaps that they've noticed around them. And that is why we end up seeking knowledge naturally. We're trying to fill in the gaps in our understanding. I'm not saying that gender doesn't exist. They might not be asking you, but I'm sure they're probably talking to their friends about topics like this. I I dare you to think back to your childhood and to tell me that you spoke to your parents about every single thing you ever thought about. Every question that you had, did you ask your parents about it? Kids these days have access to the internet. I'm curious what kind of things you do bring up with your kids, though. At what point do kids become teenagers? Is it when they turned 13? Like, one of the points I'm trying to make is that we try to set so many rules about when to do things, but there's no clear answers because everything is on a spectrum of some kind. Legally, you become an adult at 18, but realistically, you're not a fully fledged adult until your mid 20s. And yet, at 18, you can go and serve in the military, you can do all of these things, you can get married. Things that you probably shouldn't do if you have more world experience. And yes, there's an argument to say that you should be allowed to do those things, and I agree with that. But definitely, we should be educating people on when to know that they're ready for those things. I would say that until you're 25 and an adult, there is a spectrum of childhood that you're going through. So The topics worth discussing are the ones that your kids are dealing with. So, whatever they're talking to about their friends, about whatever they're searching on the internet, we should be treating kids as other humans who are going through an experience and guiding them through that experience. Like, how do we teach them how to safely use the internet? You know, one of the things that teenagers hate is being told what to do. That's why, telling them not to do this and not to do that, it doesn't work because they rebel. You have to let them make mistakes, but the thing you try to do is allow them to make mistakes in a safe way. Because we all got here by making mistakes. Mistakes is the only way that we learn. Or rather, making mistakes is the fastest and quickest way of learning. And that's an important part of seeking knowledge, is being comfortable with making mistakes and not feeling like it's a personal reflection of your value as a person to make a mistake. To inform them about what? Are you talking about the LGBT topics? Because I think we should be introducing that idea as soon as school age. When we're talking about social studies and family structures and relationships and marriage and all of these other things that they're going to be learning about anyway through school. That's why social education is so important. It's like anything. 99% of what you learn in school is not directly applicable to you, but you need to know that it's there because you're going to interact with people who come from different cultures, who practice different religions, and you're going to come in contact with people who are queer, whether you think they're queer visibly or not. The same goes with people with disabilities as well. You know, when you're growing up, you're kind of taught that, oh, a wheelchair or a crutch that means someone has a disability. But there's so many hidden disabilities as well. And we need to be mindful of those too. We make so many assumptions about people and we build our worldview around these assumptions. And then when we come in contact with someone who's outside of that, we get scared and we freeze and we're trying to figure out what this person is, but they are just a person. Just because we don't know their experience or where they come from doesn't mean we should be afraid of them. Okay, so here's the thing. If you don't explain what the concept of being straight is, then that means you can't talk about people having a mother and a father. Simple as. Also, what about the kids who have two gay dads and they're in school? And they're being told that every family has a mother and father, and then this one kid puts up their hand and says, well, I have two dads, what about me? Like, this is the reality. You're going to have these situations. Do you expect teachers and adults to say, oh, you don't count. Your experience isn't valid. Parenthood, I'm sorry to say, is inherently sexualized because we all are here because of sex. Yeah, to children, it's not sexualized. Um, but this is the thing, LGBTQ topics are not sexualized to children either. You think they're sexualized because that's the only angle you have about LGBTQ topics. You're seeing it as a sexual thing and rather than being about people. I'm going to be finishing up my live shortly because I'm starting to get close to the hour. But I think this has been an interesting conversation for sure. Thanks, Sir Roger. Have a good day. I haven't decided yet when to do my TikTok lives regularly. Today is Friday, and I did one on, I think it was Wednesday as well, but I was thinking to do them on Thursdays each week. So I'll try and get a regular schedule going now that I'm back from holidays and I'm kind of more settled. I don't know what my theme for next week is going to be yet. So I need to see if I can set up a TikTok live and then rename it. I haven't ever done that. But if not, then I will set it up next week once I know my theme. My themes are I get my themes on Sunday when I'm doing my weekly reflection. And my only stipulation is that it's not a card I've already got. But I'm running this experiment for 12 weeks, 12 full weeks. So I'll get 12 cards out of 22. So at least I know there won't be any overlap there. I wasn't quite expecting to be talking about LGBTQ topics on this live, but like anything, I'm happy to talk about anything really, as long as it somewhat relates to the theme. And to be honest, any topic can relate to the theme in some way. You know, if I was looking at this from the theme of letting go, I would say that you kind of need to let go of this idea of the world that we had 30 years ago when being queer was classified as a mental illness. You know, neurodivergence at the moment is going through that period of being classified as a mental illness as well and a disability. And there's definitely disability aspects to neurodivergence because we're not in a world that fully accommodates people. But like we went through it with people in wheelchairs, we've had to have, you know, a lot of activism about putting in wheelchair ramps and putting in crossings at roads that have sound and that have bumps in the road for or in the pathway for people to notice them if they're blind. Like there's all these accommodations that allow people to live, and by not having those accommodations, you're depriving them of really simple things just because you're a fully able-bodied person who can navigate the world. The problem is, particularly with neurodivergence, I think, is that living has become so complicated now. You know, back when it was a case of you had your meals and you tend to your farm and you go to bed, there's a lot less demand on you. Whereas now, there's so much demand for your time in order to work. You're not being paid enough to compensate you for the time that you're spending working. And all of that time working is draining you from being able to do anything else. And that is what's debilitating. So I think we're definitely in this age where we need to listen to people's experiences and help accommodate those experiences as well. The problem is that everyone talks about the neurodivergent person or the person with the invisible disability as having to do work. And there definitely is a truth there that, you know, as the individual going through the experience, you're going to have to do more work than someone else. And it's just the way the world is, the cards that you were dealt, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault. But what is people's fault is not changing the way society works to accommodate that person. Like if you're born and you can't walk, that's not your fault. It's not necessarily anybody else's fault. But refusing to give that person a wheelchair so they can navigate the world, that is society's fault. And all these systems are built upon accommodating the 99% and ignoring the 1%. Trouble is that we're starting to see now that it's more than just the 1%. Like if you look at the LGBTQ community, the statistic I was always told growing up is that 10% of the population is LGBTQ. As time goes on, that's getting closer and closer to 20%, especially with bisexuality being like a hidden sexuality, in that you have people who appear to be straight who are actually bi, and they are getting counted in heterosexual numbers. Hi there, Pete. How are you? Sorry, how would what affect the straight population of kids? I'm not sure at what point you joined. I am going to be finishing up my live shortly, but if you want to let me know your question, I can answer it. I'm not sure what point you joined the discussion, so I'm not sure what specifically you're asking about in terms of affecting the straight population of kids. I don't know what the it is that you're referring to. That's my question. Okay. Yeah, happy to discuss next time maybe. I as I say, I don't know what the it is that you're talking about because I don't know when you joined my live and I was talking about a lot of different things there. But we can chat another time. Okay, I am going to start wrapping up now. I had mentioned a bit earlier that I am looking to pick a time during the week to be more consistent with my lives, and I'm thinking about Thursdays, so I will try set that up. And I just have to check if TikTok allows you to change the name, the title of your live before it goes up once you have it set up. And if not, then I will publish it on Mondays once I know my theme of the week. So I'm going to wrap up this live talking about the theme of seeking knowledge, and I will see you guys next week for whatever next week's theme turns out to be. So thank you for joining this week, and have a good day and keep dreaming.